Hi, you're listening to the Build Your Digital Community podcast. I'm your host, Kristina Bartold, the co-founder and co-CEO of The Social Snippet, a social media agency focused on business owners growing their digital communities. On this podcast, we'll talk about all things digital community building so that you can grow your network and ultimately your business. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Build Your Digital Community. I'm your host, I'm Kristina, and I'm so stoked to be here today with Lex Roman. And the reason I'm so stoked is because you're quickly becoming one of my favorite online people. So hi, Lex, welcome.
Hi, Kristina, back at you. I'm so thrilled to be here.
I am so excited to have you. And so if you don't know Lex, which you should, and I'll link all of her stuff, her Instagram, her LinkedIn, everything in the show notes. But she's the creator of Growthtrackers and Low Energy Leads. And she empowers creatives to stay booked with less effort. And my favorite thing about Lex is we had an amazing conversation about podcasts. And she has an awesome podcast called Low Energy Leads. It's also a YouTube show. And so I'll link all of that for you. But Lex has so much on the go. And so I'm so excited, Lex, if you could tell everybody a little bit about you and kind of how you got into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, of course. So my background is in Silicon Valley. I used to do growth for tech companies. And what I would do is I would go into a company and I would say, okay, why aren't you getting the customers you want? Or why are your customers not buying anything? Or why are the customers who are buying stuff leaving? And I would dig into their data, I would dig into conversations with support, with sales, figure out what was going on, and help them fix those growth gaps. I did that for over a decade. I worked with a lot of high growth startups. I worked with Toyota, Nissan, Macy's. I worked with companies like Gusto and Prosper, the Black Tucks, across all kinds of industries. And then in 2021, I shifted my focus to small businesses. I'm really passionate about helping small businesses get seen online. It's really difficult with the way that big tech has set that all up for us. So given my tech background, I really like to help people go back to basics with relational strategies. So moving away from broadcast strategies. People think, oh, I need to market my business. I'm going to broadcast, sort of shout into the ether. That's really hard as a small business owner. So I really like helping people build relationships. And that's why you and I get along so well, Kristina.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, every time I hear where you are, I talk to you, I learn something new because I think that relational piece is the key to business, in my opinion. And it's something that people do not focus on enough. And they go hard on ads or if I post 30 times a day on TikTok, something great will happen from it, and something might, but they lose the opportunity to connect with people. And so, yeah, tell me a little bit more about that for you.
Yeah, well, so the funny thing is I didn't work in marketing in Silicon Valley. I worked in growth. And the difference is that growth comes from within a company. And interestingly, even companies like TikTok and Meta are growing through relationships. They are growing through referral mechanisms. So for example, if you recall when you joined Instagram all those years ago, it would have you connect with friends, right? It would say, follow 10 friends or import your contacts. That is a referral strategy. It's a word of mouth strategy. That's how Facebook grew so fast. That's how Instagram grew so fast. And that's what growth teams do. That's why when you open TikTok, the share button is glowing at you because you sharing with a friend is how they achieve growth. They don't want to stay on a marketing treadmill. They want that to happen from within. And the other thing is that a lot of these companies, even bigger companies, are doing partnerships. When I worked with the Black Tucks, they had a big partnership with Nordstrom, right? And that happened through phone calls and emails and meetings. And that resulted in a lot of visibility with customers of Nordstrom onto our brand. And so we see these companies and we think, well, they're just all shouting into the ether. But the reality is companies of all sizes are building relationships and strategic ones, right? So that they can access new audiences.
I love that. And so it's interesting you talk about this because I think people often forget that social media platforms are built to keep us in there. And so often when I think we were kind of talking about this too, about LinkedIn right before we came on and about links and stuff like that. Often I'll have to remind people about Instagram where I'm like, Instagram prioritizes things that are going to keep us in the app. They want that time. They want you to spend there, right? So that's why you want to rewatch a reel more than once. That's why you want to hit the save button, all of these things that seem kind of natural to us. But they also really prioritize relationships. And you notice that when you start engaging with somebody, they start to come up more and more for you. But at the same time, as business owners, we can't spend all day on Instagram, even though people try, to spend all day on Instagram building their business, especially businesses that aren't online businesses. Like, I can't tell you how many brick and mortars I've met with where they're like, it's exhausting to try to be on social media all the time. And I'm like, yeah, I hear you, but like, I also know that it's this amazing marketing strategy, and but it's all, like, for me, it's like sometimes it's about going back to the basics of how to run a business, which before social media and before a lot of traditional marketing was relationships.
Yes. I also think people can reposition social that way, as you have, right? Mm-hmm. So using social media as a tool in your networking toolkit, right? As a comms tool. So taking a brick and mortar business as an example, people might go to their Instagram to see, like, are they open on a holiday? And it's like, that doesn't require like the whole kitchen staff to do a dance reel. It just requires a post that says, yeah, we're open, here's the hours, right? Like, lower the bar a little bit for yourself and think, what am I really getting out of this tool? And one of my favorite ways to use Instagram, even though I'm on a hiatus per this recording, is to chat with people like you. Is to say, okay, I've met this amazing person. I want to know more about their business. It's an easy way to get to know them and to deepen that relationship without having to always book a call with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually like the way that I try to use social too. But I do find it so overwhelming sometimes to even keep up with the amount of people that you're meeting, right? And especially when you're networking, I know you and I are both in some communities like Entrepreneurship, like Minded Collective, like you network with all these amazing people. And then I feel like Instagram's a bit like a Rolodex where you get to like connect with people and then kind of keep in contact with them. But then it gets to a point where you're meeting so many people that I'm really relationship centered and want to keep the relationship at the front, but sometimes it can be so challenging managing all of that. So I don't know if that's something that you kind of work through with some of your clients.
Yes. So we have a few mantras inside Growthtrackers, the membership that I run for creative entrepreneurs. One of them is the most valuable audience is the one you already have. And what that means is that you often overlook the people you know. You overlook the people that you just met at last night's networking event. You overlook your clients. You overlook friends and family, past colleagues. And all of those people know you better than the person you haven't met yet, right? Mm-hmm. And everybody's so focused on meeting strangers. Just how many strangers can I meet, right? Shaking hands and kissing babies out there on the internet. And it's like, that's going to feel exhausting because you're going to have to introduce yourself every day. But if you go back through that Rolodex, you say, okay, last week I was on a like-minded collective networking call and I met this one person I thought was really cool. I'm going to make an effort to connect with them. I'm going to set a reminder to check in with them in a month. Going deep, not broad with your networking. Not saying, okay, I'm going to collect everyone's business cards, but I'm just going to walk away with one person who I think could be a great partner for me, or one person who I think would be a really great client. Like that is the key. It's like it's not about just like numbers, right? It's about depth. Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I've told this story on the podcast before, so maybe you've heard it, Lex. But so Maria and I, we went to this with Lauren, our operations manager. We went to this chamber event. And I love our Chamber of Commerce. I've just started getting involved with it, and I obsessed with our area. And we go to this chamber event. It was so expensive. Like the dinner was just it was like $250 a person. And like I'm just saying this because as we were trying to make the choice, we were like, there's not going to be ROI here. Like we didn't think. We were like, we're coming to this. It's really just about us supporting the local community. We're going to eat dinner. We were nominated for an award. Like it was just about like kind of being like part of the fam, if you will. So we go to this event, we sit with a lovely group of people, we kind of connect with them, but like, not too much in common. Like they seem to have what they're doing going on. Like one of them was running a lobster shop. So like there were some differences in what we were doing day in and day out, right? Like, so then on the way out, we were like at the bar and we made all of these connections with all these people, but it wasn't like hey, I am a social media manager, like this is what I do, or I run a podcast, this is what I do. It was like hey, what do you do? How do you serve people? That's so cool. Like, what are you doing in the community? Like, and it turned out we got 2 clients and like 2 really like incredible clients that I'm loving that we're serving locally from just standing at the bar and like just talking to people and being normal. And like, it wasn't about us like going and they were like, do you have a business card? And I was like, no. Now I do. But like, it was just about connecting. And so I think that that's also part of it too, is that sometimes you can meet an ideal client or you can meet someone in a space you're not expecting, and being able to leverage that rather than being so obsessed with those like random people, the random Instagram engagement, trying to get that follower number up, like trying to like network with as many followers as you can. It's like you already have people in your community who are vouching for you and selling for you. You don't even know it yet. So sometimes it's not even like the things we think that will make us money that do.
Yes. And I think a lot of people aren't necessarily showing up to those conversations this word's super overused, but in an authentic way, right? They're just out there like, can I yield transactional value from this conversation, right? Like going around the room, insurance broker style, door-to-door salesman style. And it's like, I do think you have to show up as a human being and be like, do I actually want to talk to this person? If the answer is no, like you're probably not going to want them as a client or a partner either, right? So, again, it's like, it's not about working the room. It's about actually like listening to the person that you're speaking to and being like, oh, do we have common ground here or not? Like, how can I actually like show up as a human being in this moment? It's like easier said than done. I think a lot of people, we're about to do an event here in Atlanta about building meaningful business relationships with Kat Velos, who specializes in human connection, because it's so hard for people to connect. Like it's a challenge for people. You have a natural gift for it, but I think a lot of people really struggle with it.
Well, I think it's also about like, and this is why I'm so passionate about like having a podcast and running in local events too, as well. Lex, like I'm passionate about that because I actually think you have no idea where your next lead's going to come from. And like you could be pouring into people and like coming with like full service mind, service heart, and someone will pay you back in a year. Like one of our biggest clients is someone who followed us on Instagram. I know them from university. She would engage with my stuff all the time. She bought a 1-hour consultation with me. And then she was like, yeah, I'm all in. I'm ready to go. Like I've been following you and I'm ready. But it took that time. And I think we're so eager on the immediate result. So when we go to an in-person event like the one you're talking about, we're like, okay, well, who's going to give me back my $50 that I paid for this? Like and it's like, someone's going to give you that $50 back in 5 years and it's going to be 50 grand. But it's like not being so worried about that. So I went to an event in Toronto once and I'll never forget, like I literally left and I was like, where was I? Like it was at a beautiful place. It was like a lovely environment. And this woman's like, hey, I'm a mortgage broker. And I was like, cool. And she was like, do you have any leads for me? And I was like, what? And she was like, do you know anybody who might need a mortgage? And I'm like, I, 1, have mortgage broker clients. 2, have my own mortgage broker. Like, but you've got nothing to build a relationship with me that will give you my best asset, which is my community. And I'm going to just give that up for you. But it's amazing how we can like feel like we need to do those types of things like in that level of scarcity.
Yes. Well, that's why I like to say the most valuable audience is the one you already have, because you have to have already put that work in. If you need the immediate result, you have to have already put that work in. So when you need work, you're going back to people who already know, like, and trust you, not to just like brand new people, right? You're not showing up at that event hoping to close a sale. That's not generally going to happen unless you happen to hit a buyer in a buy moment. So you have to be doing that work year round to build those relationships because they do take time to pay off. So if you need something that pays off, you're going to have to lean on a relationship you already have.
And what do you recommend for folks? Like, and again, I try not to recommend people to do things from scarcity spots and like hit up their networks hard. But like, how do you think that people could best leverage their networks if they're starting something new or they're in a new venture and they're looking for collaborators, partners, future clients?
So it's funny because I actually help people a lot in a scarcity place. Like I help people in a crunch time of like, I need work or my business is going to fail. And I love a high stakes moment. Like I love it when people are like, I have no idea what to do. I'm like running out of cash, right? What do I, like, this is why I love doing growth in Silicon Valley. It's like high stakes.
When people are running out of cash. I love it.
Well, I like when there's urgency. Like for me, it's super motivating. And I love the challenge of like, okay, what's the fastest path to getting leads? It's like a game, right? It's like, what's the fastest payoff strategy, right? You have all these marketing plays that you're thinking about: email, podcasting, networking, partnerships, guest blogging. And you're like, which one of these is going to pay off the fastest? And the answer is always going to be people. It's always going to be relationships. So going to people one-on-one, going to people that you already know through email, going to people in your partnerships network if you have a referral program or something like that. I mean, the first thing that I recommend people do is go back to past clients. That is like usually the easiest quick win if you have had clients before. Go back, see if anyone wants to do another project with you, see if anyone knows anyone. Then going out to referrers, people who have already sent work your way. Maybe they're not clients, but they've sent people your way. And then moving into like the partner connector network, people that you know who are really good introducers of people, as you are, Kristina. Like who are those sort of hubs who also work with your audience or can connect you to people who might be in a buy moment, right? What you really need in those times of scarcity is someone who's like buy ready. They are problem aware, they have their wallet open, and they're just like, I need to give this credit card to someone. Who should I give it to? And you just want to be standing there in that moment. So you can leverage your network in order to do that. But you have to be doing that, like, as we just talked about, you have to be doing that relationship building year round. If you go back to your network and they're cold, that's going to be less likely to happen because you've sort of degraded some trust there.
Yeah, and I think that that's the biggest piece is building that trust that you're a consistent person that people can buy from and that you do good work. So like one of the things I love to give a kickback typically to referrals, like that's important to me. And it's so funny because I never collect them. I won't collect them from people. I'm always like, no, I'm just about energy. But then I give them very actively, like because I'm like, I want to. But it's one of those pieces where like it's that showing up consistently where people are going to be like, okay, like even if you feel like, you know, you're in a space where you've got a good amount of clients or you're like in even a full capacity spot, you won't always be, especially if you're a creative and you're doing like, we're an agency, so we can always take on a little bit more work. But early on, like we had a max capacity of how many social media clients we could take on. And there's always fluctuation. We lose clients all the time. Like, you know, people like change their budgets, like, or they like, we've had people stop doing business, like stuff like that. Not because of us, but it's like, okay, they're done and that's fine. And so we have to be able to be fluid. And so I think that that's a mistake people often make is that when they're in a good spot, they're done with marketing. They're done with talking about what they're doing. They're done highlighting their projects. But I actually think that's the most important time because then it helps with some of those more scarcity times for us.
Yes. And it's also one of the, like, to my podcast name, lower energy marketing plans is to develop a stay in touch strategy with your clients and develop a stay in touch strategy with people that you meet along the way who you think will be valuable for your business or who you just like and feel like you have common ground with. So one of my favorite examples of this, I used to work for an agency in San Francisco called Carbon 5, and they would hold like a quarterly mixer for clients. Their business was almost exclusively referral, and they were doing, like, I'm not going to say their revenue number, but they do a lot of really high ticket business. And so they would just have a quarterly mixer, invite all their clients, and then it was a great time for clients to bring like a friend or another company with them, and it was a great like way to just keep those relationships up. Not that much work, right? We're just like, yep, this is the schedule. Once a quarter, we have everyone over.
I love that. I actually love that. And so you and I were jamming out on this a little bit before we got on, this idea of like in person, right? Like there is something really special about in-person events. And I know you're running some, we run some, and we're going to get to meet in September, which I'm so excited about. But like, I love the in-person aspect of it because not only is it an amazing strategy to build your network and people are always, there's like a different energy about online things, but there's also a big like aspect of every single time we do something like this, we're now in front of a totally new group of people that get to see us in our element, see us talking about what we're passionate about. And I'll see people one time at a networking event and then they're like, I've listened to every single one of your podcasts because I met you, I liked you, and now I'm in, right? But that's an amazing way to start to convert people. I know that you feel the same way. Yeah.
So I moved back to Atlanta. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and I moved back here last year. And so I've been doing a lot of like business community building here. And I'm part of a group here called the Atlanta Solopreneurs. We're becoming a co-op, so the Atlanta Solopreneurs Co-op.
Woo.
And what's really cool about it is that I can use other business owners in my business. Like I have just like obvious ways to leverage all these business owners going about my day. So one of the other business owners in the group came over and did my brand photos recently, which was so cool, right? And then another person in the group was a guest speaker inside my membership. And so it's great to be able to like sort of activate locally with other business owners, support each other, and just have like a community that knows each other too, like off of the screen. So I love it. I'm a huge fan of like getting out into the community. I love being able to meet other business owners. And it's just refreshing. Like we show up on Saturdays, we have a coffee meetup we do on Saturdays, and everyone's just like so happy to be there and like debrief their weeks. And it's just, it's not as transactional as what happens on Zoom, I think.
I love that because I actually also think that like the in-person stuff is so interesting because when we're in the online world, we get so sucked into this like world of like coaches and like this and that, and like you're like, not that there's anything wrong with that, and I consider myself in a lot of ways a coach too, but I just don't say it often. But one of the things that is so interesting is like when we held our first in-person meetup, people would come out of the woodwork, like people we'd never met before, like came out, and it was so cool. They're like, I'm following you on Instagram. I just bought a ticket. Like, I kind of want to be there. I'm like, great. They had come, and they're like, I'm like a high ticket sales coach, and I'm like, a sales coach in my city? Like, that's so interesting, because you're just these like fictitious online people. Like, that's so interesting. But they're in, like, they live places, like they're everywhere.
Yes.
But it's so cool to see your local audience where I'm like, oh my gosh, like this person's a sales coach, another person's an anti-anxiety coach. I live really close to somebody who does really like high performance mindset stuff. And I would have never have known that had I not held a local event that brought these like really high level people together, which was awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. And there's like multiple ties that can happen there, right? Not just like business partnerships and client, relationships, but also like support on the weekend, support when you're, moving around your community, tips for hairdressers, dentists, lawyers, all kinds of stuff. Like it's super helpful. We have people, shifting their housing situation who are leaning on that. I just had someone contacted me. There's a group of bikes that are getting thrown away, and somebody in our group loves sustainability, so he's going to go get them, right? Like cool stuff like that wouldn't happen online. I do think it's really interesting. Like I've noticed, with the remote work revolution, a lot of people don't put their location online. I don't mean like their home address, but they don't like identify with their city or their country. And to me, it's kind of weird. Like, It's weird. I have no idea where you're located. Like, are you a human or are you an AI? Like, what's with that, Kristina? Because you're pretty clear about where you live and you do a lot of local stuff. But what do you think's up with that? Why are people doing that? Why are they like, I just exist on the internet? You don't need to know what's behind the curtain.
So is it, I don't know the answer, so like this is just, I'm brainstorming here with you, Lex, but like, is it the digital nomad thing that people don't want to be tied down to like a specific location? Like that's what I think it could be, is that people are just like, no, I want to be in Bali, but I also want to be in Miami, and then I also want to be in Scottsdale. Like I think those are the only three options, but like the people are like wanting to be highly digital. I think it's interesting too, because when I think about local community, there is an opportunity. I might be wrong about this in the States, but I feel this in Canada, so you can correct me. But there is an opportunity as younger people and women in particular to shift the way that business is done. And I'm feeling that a lot when I go to in-person events that I don't run, where I'm like, oh, like this is a lot of like men. Like it's just so many men. Lots of them. And they're like lots of white men. And again, it's fine. But for me, like I come from an immigrant family, like, so it's just like something I noticed. So I'm like, oh, interesting. But I think there's an opportunity to soften some of this. Like where like now I feel like I'm like, okay, like I want to run some of these events for it to feel softer, and I want it to feel a little bit more feminine or whatever that looks like. And when I say that, I don't mean like the traditional use of the word feminine, but like just more of that relationship centered approach to business and allowing that space for different people to kind of shine. And so I don't know the answer to your question about why people won't give their address up. We're not looking for home addresses here.
We're coming to your house. Well, first of all, yes, I totally agree about creating the space you want to be in is really key. Yeah. And in many ways, there's a lot of benefits to doing that locally, because it's just a smaller arena. It sort of narrows your focus, and it's like, okay, well, it's going to be in my neighborhood, right? And it's going to be about the things that I'm interested in, and I'm going to see who's interested in that here. Yeah. But going back to the digital nomad thing, I don't know how many of those people are really digital nomads, but I do think that there's an interesting conversation to be had that we are not having enough about what makes cities great. So if you're just coming to pop into that city, the people that are making that city great are people like you who are creating community in that city that people can plug into. And so it's worth thinking about, are you contributing to community, and where are you contributing to community? Because if you're just consuming community, then that's not going to yield as much value for you long term, right? It's the becoming a contributor that makes it valuable, where you become a shaper of that and then a recipient of the benefits of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I felt the difference of that in attending networking events and hosting them, like where the energy is just different, and that's like okay, you don't have to host networking events, but it's like being there and being like, okay, like I have a responsibility for people to feel included. I have a responsibility to like check in with people after and see how they felt it went. Like these things that I try to voice note everybody after to say like, hey, I was thinking about you. Here's something you said that was valuable. Like I try to do some of those things. I'm not perfect every time, but I think there's this level of commitment to growth, and I want to see more businesses in our area. Something that I thought was really interesting was I was in Phoenix a few weeks ago, and maybe about a month, and I had an event, and you would sit next to someone and you'd be like, oh, like, how are you? Like, where are you from? And they'd be like, oh, Kelowna, like BC, or like, you know, like filled with Canadians, like riddled with them, like so many. If you're ever looking for Canadians in the winter, we are in Arizona en masse. But it was fascinating because I was like, does anybody live here? Like, are any of you from Phoenix? And there were a few, of course, but like people had found this like entrepreneurial spirit, and they like really were attracted to it, and it was like a magnet. They're like, I want to live here because Chris and Lori Harder live here, and James Wedmore lives here, and Lindsay Schwartz lives here. Cool, awesome. You can be those people at home. Like, if they don't exist, then you can be that person there, right? Like, and show people what's possible. Like, and I think that that's such a missed opportunity. Is like, I love Arizona. I already have a trip planned in the fall. Like, I love traveling for work. I love going into other communities. But I'm not missed that this is the place where I have the opportunity to create the most community, is like in my own backyard.
Yes. Well, what is it? People are always like, you know, there's enough for all of us. There's like plenty to go around. And I think, people overlook that opportunity. There's so many ways that people want to connect, and so much opportunity in that space. And like one of the reasons why we're shifting our group into more of a co-op is that we recognize that people want to create more spaces, that they don't necessarily want to. I run the coffee meetup, and so I attract the kind of people that I want to attract to that, who have availability on a Saturday in my neighborhood, right? And there's other people in other parts of town who have an opportunity to create that. Atlanta's a huge metro area, so it's like, you know, people who are an hour north of me aren't necessarily going to come to my meetup, but maybe they could have their own meetup, and maybe that's about physical products, or maybe it's about, you know, we have a kombucha maker. Maybe it's about making kombucha, right? Or maybe it's about food and beverage. Like, create the space that you want to exist in. And so we're trying to foster that here too, because I think it can be daunting for people who've never created events. So we're trying to see what kind of light support we can, you know, to foster that here in Atlanta, because we want that to exist. We want people to feel connected, not just over Zoom, but also here on the ground.
Yeah, I love that. And it doesn't have to be, Lex, and I'm sure you'd speak more to this too, but like when we're talking about in-person community events, they don't need to be these events where you've got 80 people in a room and they're sponsored and there's balloons and like, but we always joke, Maria and I you mentioned this episode, so I know you know what I'm talking about, but we have a friend who throws the most incredible events, and there's like balloon arches and mics everywhere, and it's like a live podcast, and we're like, we love that and we'd love to be there, but we're not there yet, and that's okay. And if your first dinner is 5 people in a room and you guys are having lunch and it's with 4 other entrepreneurs, like that's a success. You meet someone new for coffee one time, like you have no idea where that's going to lead. And that's so powerful. Like it doesn't have to be like what you're building and what you're working on is this incredible thing that's, I have no doubt, has ripple effects and is going to create huge change in Atlanta. And I love that. But that had to start with something small and had to probably start with one conversation. It wasn't like today you were like, now we're, you know, satelliting out and this is like, we're going across the country. Like it's one thing at a time.
Yes. And that was a big wake up call. So I lived in LA for 15 years before this. And so it was a huge wake up call for me to be like, oh, I don't have a network in Atlanta. Even though I went to school here, I don't have a network here at all anymore. All those people have left. And so the first event we hosted was in November of last year. I had one person attend, and then my VA came, and luckily she brought her boyfriend, so there were 4 of us there. I had like rented a whole room. It was free, but I had like set aside a room at a brewery, and I did a lot of promotion. And to your point, it's like nobody came, but I didn't give up. I just kept doing them. Okay. And then I met someone in January named Jordan Patterson, and he was like, I was going out of the country, and I was like, if anyone wants to just like keep hosting meetups, like do it. And Jordan did it, and it really took off while he was doing it, which was so cool for me because it was like, yes, get involved and shape the thing, but also make room for other people to bring their vision to it, because he really made it take off. He had a lot more connections than I did and his own vision for the group. And now we've attracted other organizers. And so like there's 4 of us right now. We're doing all kinds of different stuff. We have over 150 people on our mailing list, which is a far cry from the 4 people that came, or the 3, really 1 person. Actually, the first person who came moved to LA after that meetup, so we lost her right away. But it's
because
like,
of the meetup, or
yeah, she was like, this is the worst, I'm out. No, she was already, yeah, I was like, no, you can't, you're my 1 person that came. Yeah, but it's like, you know, create the space you want, make room for others, like that beauty of like slowing down and being like, we're present here together. What do you want to create? What do I want to create? How can we like navigate this?
Yeah.
It's really beautiful when that can happen.
Oh, Lex, I could friggin' talk to you all day. Can we have a part 2 sometime?
Yeah, you know it. Maybe in Toronto.
Yeah, that would be actually really fun. I love it. Like, so firstly, thank you so much. And I have to say this because everybody who talks about you freaking loves you. And it's because not only are you, I remember when I met you, I was like, I messaged Stacey after and I was like, she's really cool. Like, you have a very cool vibe, but you're so smart and insightful. And like, yeah, I'm just lucky to be on your journey, and I'm grateful for your friendship. So I just want to say thank you firstly. And I would love for you to tell everyone how they can find you, how they can work with you, how they can connect with you, because it's not Instagram right now.
It's not Instagram right now. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me under Lex Roman. You can check out my podcast, The Low Energy Leads Show, as Kristina mentioned, on YouTube and other podcasting platforms. And I also have, if you're like hurting for clients, as I mentioned, I have a Stay Booked roadmap, and I'll give you a code, Kristina, you can throw in the show notes that people can check out. It's on Gumroad.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Yeah, I will leave all of that in the show notes. All of you will get that as well via email. And I just want to thank you again, Lex, and thank you everyone for listening. I know it's busy, and I appreciate you spending your time with us. And let us know what resonates. So if something resonated with you, if you shared it in an Instagram story, I will tell Lex. But let us know what resonated with you, and let us know what kind of community you go into building. Thanks so much for listening to the Build Your Digital Community podcast. If you loved the episode, please don't forget to rate us and leave us a review. Now, we'd love for you to be a part of our digital community. Text JOIN to 855-908-4688 to join our text list for exclusive social media tips, or DM us on Instagram at The Social Snippet, letting us know what you loved about the episode. Keep on building community, and to this and so much more.